I'm going to try to explain capitalism in under 3 minutes. So I understand capitalism as a historical era that followed feudalism, and I think we can understand capitalism in relation to feudalism. Under feudalism, there were 3 main classes: the nobility, like the kings, queens, and lords, the clergy, and the serfs or peasants. The peasants didn't own the land, and they would have to provide the lords with a certain amount of harvest or rent or taxes every month in exchange for using the land. So capitalism started to emerge in the 12th to 15th century when Europeans began colonizing other countries, and industrialization forced peasants to move from the country to the city where they would work in factories en masse. So capitalism produced 3 new main classes: the capitalists, who own the means of production, like the factories, plantations, and mines; the workers, who sold their labor to capitalists for a fixed rate or a wage; and finally, slaves, who were people of color who had been racialized and trafficked to the Americas by colonizers, and they were designated as property. So here are some of the main differences between capitalism and feudalism. Capitalism automated labor and forced people to do repetitive, alienating jobs like assembling widgets at a conveyor belt for 15 hours a day in unsafe, dirty conditions. Capitalism mainstreamed slavery and made human trafficking the main source of wealth, whereas under feudalism, true slavery was quite rare. Capitalism invented racism as we understand it today because it designated people of color as inherent slaves, and there had never previously been a racialized system of slavery and human trafficking. Capitalism concentrated wealth amongst a few rich families like the Rothschilds and Cadburys, whereas power had been more decentralized under feudalism. Feudal lords would have owned just a few hundred acres of land and controlled a few dozen peasants, whereas capitalists controlled hundreds of thousands of workers and slaves in plantations and mines and factories all over the world. Because capitalism created a global system of centralized control, it allowed capitalists to become far more powerful than the feudal nobility ever were. Because feudal lords only controlled a few dozen serfs, if they imposed too much labor or fees on them, there would be peasant revolts, and these were actually quite common. Even kings had limited power because their power came from lords, and lords could refuse to comply with their demands or revolt against the royal family, which also happened not that infrequently. In contrast, a handful of capitalists owned factories, mines, and plantations all over the world, which allowed them to control more wealth and to export their personal beliefs like racism and sexism to the farthest corners of the earth, creating a global system of indoctrination. So what capitalism is a system of domination that allows capitalist elites to control labor, land, and resources on an international level, to concentrate power amongst a few rich families, to export capitalist ideologies around the world, and to suppress dissent with private security forces, the police, and the military, which makes revolt very difficult. I did it.